Peer into the murky waters of our planet's rivers and estuaries, and you might feel you're looking back in time. There, lurking with an unnerving stillness, is the crocodile. Armored, patient, and radiating an aura of ancient power, it seems to be a creature ripped from the pages of prehistory. It's a survivor. When a cataclysmic asteroid impact drew a final fiery curtain on the Cretaceous period, wiping out the non-avian dinosaurs in a geologic blink of an eye, the ancestors of this reptile endured. This remarkable story of survival has fueled one of the most persistent and compelling myths in all of natural history, that the crocodile is a living dinosaur. It looks the part, it has the lineage, and it possesses a ferocity we readily associate with the lost world of giants. The connection feels intuitive, almost obvious. But in the intricate tapestry of life, the most obvious answer is rarely the whole story. To unravel this prehistoric family secret, we must first dismantle the myth and ask a fundamental question. What truly makes a dinosaur? The term dinosaur is not a casual label for any large, extinct reptile. It is a precise scientific classification defined by a shared set of unique anatomical features. While many traits distinguish them, the single most important innovation is hidden deep within their skeleton, their hips. Dinosaurs, from the nimble Compsognathus to the colossal Argentinosaurus, possessed what is called a perforate acetabulum, a hole in the hip socket where the femur connects. This seemingly minor detail had revolutionary consequences. It allowed their legs to be positioned directly beneath their body, in an erect, pillar-like stance, much like mammals or birds. This posture supported their immense weight efficiently and enabled a more active, mobile lifestyle. Crocodilians, by contrast, retain a more primitive, sprawling or semi-erect posture, with their legs splayed out to the sides. Their hip structure is solid, lacking that key opening. This fundamental difference in locomotion and skeletal engineering is the anatomical firewall that separates the two groups. It is the primary reason why, despite its fearsome appearance, a crocodile is not and never was a dinosaur. To find where their paths diverged, we must travel back further to a time before the dinosaurs began their reign. Our destination is the Triassic period, around 250 million years ago. Here we meet their common ancestors, a group of reptiles known as Archosaurs, the ruling reptiles. These creatures were the progenitors of a vast and diverse dynasty. From this shared ancestral root, the family tree split. It was a fundamental fork in the evolutionary road. One branch, the Avemetatarsalia, gave rise to the dinosaurs and their flying cousins, the pterosaurs. They were defined by adaptations for agility and, eventually, that signature upright stance. The other branch was the Pseudosuchia, a lineage that includes all modern crocodilians and their astonishing array of extinct relatives. For millions of years, these two great Archosaurian lines evolved side by side, competing for dominance in the strange, arid landscapes of the early Mesozoic. This was not yet a world ruled by dinosaurs. It was a world of Archosaurian experimentation, and the crocodile line was about to have its day in the sun. Long before Tyrannosaurus rex became the icon of prehistoric predation, the Pseudosuchians, the crocodile-line Archosaurs, were the undisputed apex predators on land. The Triassic period was their golden age, a time of staggering diversity that shatters our modern perception of a crocodile. Forget the water-bound ambush hunter for a moment. Imagine instead Postosuchus, a 10-foot-long terrestrial carnivore with a massive skull, striding across the landscape on powerful legs. Picture Ephigia, a bipedal, gazelle-like creature darting through the undergrowth with a toothless beak. Envision heavily armored, herbivorous Archosaurs, like living tanks, covered in bony plates, browsing on tough vegetation. For millions of years, these Pseudosuchians were the dominant fauna. They filled ecological niches that dinosaurs would later occupy, from top predators to swift runners and armored plant-eaters. It was the crocodiles' kin, not the dinosaurs, that first truly conquered the continents after the devastation of the Permian extinction. The dinosaurs were, at this point, mostly small, secondary players living in the shadows of their formidable crocodilian cousins. The reign of the terrestrial Pseudosuchians came to an abrupt and devastating end. Around 201 million years ago, the Triassic period closed with one of the planet's 5 great mass extinctions. The supercontinent of Pangaea was ripping apart, triggering immense and prolonged volcanic eruptions. Vast floods of lava poured across the land, and the atmosphere was choked with carbon dioxide and other toxic gases, leading to rapid and extreme climate change. This global catastrophe was selective in its destruction. For reasons still debated by scientists, the diverse and dominant land-dwelling Pseudosuchians were hit exceptionally hard. Most of them vanished forever. The dinosaurs, however, weathered the storm. Perhaps their higher metabolism or more efficient breathing, an inheritance from their earliest ancestors, gave them a crucial survival edge in the oxygen-poor atmosphere. With their main competitors suddenly gone, an unprecedented ecological opportunity opened up. The dinosaurs seized it. Across the globe, they rapidly diversified, evolving into the myriad of forms that would dominate the planet for the next 150 million years. The age of crocodiles' kin on land was over. The age of dinosaurs had truly begun. While the dinosaurs rose to rule the land, the crocodile-line did not disappear. Instead, its surviving members, the crocodilomorphs, played to their strengths and embraced a different realm, the water. This retreat to the river's edge was not a defeat, but a brilliant strategic adaptation that ensured their lineage's survival. Over millions of years, they honed the body plan that we find so familiar today. Skulls flattened for a low profile in the water. Eyes and nostrils migrated to the top of the head, and tails transformed into powerful muscular propellers. They perfected the art of the ambush. This new semi-aquatic lifestyle was incredibly successful, allowing them to thrive in the shadow of the dinosaurs. And they were far from timid neighbors. In the Cretaceous period, giants like Archosaurus, the supercroc, and the immensely powerful Dinosuchus patrolled the waterways. These were not mere scavengers, they were apex predators in their own right. Colossal beasts capable of ambushing and overpowering dinosaurs, even large ones that dared to venture to the water's edge for a drink. They had found their niche, and in it they prospered. So we arrive at the truth, a story far more complex and fascinating than the myth it replaces. Crocodiles are not living dinosaurs. They are their cousins, two distinct branches of the great Archosaur family tree. They shared a common ancestor in the distant Triassic past, but their journeys diverged, leading them down separate evolutionary roads for over 250 million years. One road led to the spectacular reign and eventual extinction of the non-avian dinosaurs, leaving behind only their direct descendants, birds. The other road, the crocodile's road, was a tale of adaptation and resilience. They rose to dominance, were nearly wiped out, and then reinvented themselves, finding enduring success in the world's waterways. Their survival through the great extinction that claimed their famous cousins is the ultimate testament to their specialized design. They are not a relic of the dinosaurs world, but a parallel dynasty of ruling reptiles, a separate and equally ancient lineage of survivors who have more than earned their own place in the grand saga of life on Earth. The Earth is waking from a nightmare. 250 million years ago, at the dawn of the Triassic period, the planet is a shadow of its former self. The Great Dying, the Permian-Triassic extinction event, has scoured the globe, wiping out over 90% of marine species and 70% of terrestrial life. In this vast, empty world, opportunities abound for the survivors. Among them, a group of reptiles known as Archosauriforms, the ruling lizard forms, are poised for greatness. These are not yet dinosaurs, nor are they crocodiles. They are the common ancestors, humble pioneers in a recovering ecosystem. They carry within their DNA the blueprint for two of the most successful dynasties in Earth's history. This is a world of extremes. Vast deserts stretch across the supercontinent of Pangaea, while hardy forests of conifers and ferns cling to life along river systems. It is in this crucible of recovery that the next chapter of life on land will be forged. A family is about to be born, and its legacy will be written in stone for hundreds of millions of years. From these hardy survivors, a new, more advanced group emerges. The Archosaurs. Their name means ruling reptiles, a title they would earn through a series of key evolutionary innovations. Chief among these was a change in locomotion. While their ancestors sprawled, Archosaurs began to pull their limbs more directly beneath their body. This semi-erect posture was a revolution in reptilian engineering. It allowed for more efficient, sustained movement and faster bursts of speed. A perfect example of this transitional stage is the creature known as Euparkeria. Small, agile, and no longer than a meter, Euparkeria could likely walk on 4 legs but run on 2, a facultative biped. This ability to switch between postures gave it an incredible advantage, allowing it to pursue small prey and evade larger predators with newfound agility. Its skull was light, its teeth sharp, and its senses keen. Euparkeria and its relatives were not just surviving the post-extinction world, they were actively conquering it, laying the groundwork for the anatomical divergence to come. Here, in the crucible of the mid-Triassic, the Archosaur family tree encounters its most significant fork in the road. The lineage splits into 2 great sister clades, a division defined not by teeth or armor, but by the subtle architecture of the ankle. It is a seemingly minor detail with monumental consequences for the future of life on Earth. One branch, the Pseudosuchia, developed a flexible, rotating ankle joint known as a crurotarsal ankle. This allowed their feet to twist and adapt, providing stability on uneven terrain, a trait that would serve the ancestors of crocodiles well. The other branch, the Ave metatarsalia, evolved a simple, powerful hinge-like joint, the advanced mesotarsal ankle. This design sacrificed rotational flexibility for incredible efficiency in straight-line forward motion. It was the ankle of a dedicated runner. This fundamental anatomical split set the 2 groups on entirely different evolutionary paths, defining their movement, their hunting styles, and ultimately their destiny. One path led to the crocodiles, the other to the dinosaurs, and their living descendants, the birds. The Pseudosuchia, the crocodile-line Archosaurs, quickly diversified and rose to prominence. For much of the Triassic period, they were the undisputed rulers of the terrestrial realm. The popular image of a crocodile as a semi-aquatic ambush predator was just one of many lifestyles this incredibly varied group explored. They were an explosion of evolutionary creativity. Some, like the heavily armored herbivorous Archosaurs, resembled walking fortresses covered in bony plates. Others, like the Rauisuchians, were the apex predators of their time. Creatures like Postosuchus, a formidable carnivore stretching over 4 meters long, were a terrifying presence. With a deep, powerful skull and dagger-like teeth, it walked on 4 pillar-like legs, a quadrupedal hunter that dominated the landscape long before the large carnivorous dinosaurs appeared. These were not sluggish reptiles. They were active, dynamic animals that filled nearly every major ecological niche, establishing the first great Archosaur dynasty across Pangaea. Meanwhile, the other branch of the family, the Ave Metatarsalia, lived in the shadow of their dominant Pseudosuchian cousins. These were the ancestors of dinosaurs, pterosaurs, and birds. During the Triassic, they were generally smaller, more lightly built, and occupied niches that avoided direct competition with the larger ruling reptiles. Creatures like Marsuchus and Lagerpeton exemplify this early strategy. Slender, agile, and often bipedal, they were built for speed and efficiency. Their specialized ankle and upright posture, inherited from their common Archosaur ancestor and perfected by their lineage, made them incredibly nimble. They likely preyed on insects and smaller vertebrates, darting through the undergrowth, relying on quick reflexes and bursts of speed to survive. While the Pseudosuchians ruled through size and power, the Ave Metatarsalia were honing the adaptations for endurance and agility that would one day allow their descendants, the dinosaurs, to inherit the Earth. They were the understudies, waiting in the wings for their moment on the world stage. The late Triassic world was therefore a land of 2 dynasties. It was a complex ecosystem where both branches of the Archosaur family tree flourished side by side, locked in an evolutionary arms race that had been raging for millions of years. Imagine a watering hole on the vast plains of Pangaea. Here the diversity is on full display. A herd of armored herbivorous Archosaurs, part of the crocodile lineage, dig for roots with their pig-like snouts. Nearby, a towering Postosuchus watches them with predatory intent, its presence commanding respect from all other animals. Darting between the legs of these giants are the smaller, nimble dinosauromorphs, the ancestors of the great dinosaurs to come. They snatch insects from the air or chase tiny lizards, always vigilant. This was not yet the age of dinosaurs. It was the age of Archosaurs, a time of shared dominion, where 2 distinct evolutionary strategies for success were being tested against the harsh realities of prehistoric life. For now, the robust and powerful Pseudosuchians held the upper hand in most environments. But evolution does not happen in a vacuum. The planet itself has a vote. Around 201 million years ago, the Triassic period came to a violent close. The supercontinent of Pangaea began to tear itself apart, triggering one of the largest volcanic events in Earth's history. The Central Atlantic magmatic province unleashed a torrent of lava and greenhouse gases, causing rapid and catastrophic climate change. This end-Triassic extinction event proved fatal for many of the dominant Pseudosuchians. The large terrestrial apex predators like Postosuchus vanished. The specialized Archosaurs disappeared. The reasons are complex, likely tied to the collapse of the food chains they relied on. Yet, astonishingly, the smaller, more adaptable dinosaurs of the Ave Metatarsalia line survived, as did the Pseudosuchians that had already adopted a semi-aquatic lifestyle, the ancestors of modern crocodiles. The great family schism was now complete. One branch, decimated on land, found its future in the water. The other, freed from competition, stepped out of the shadows to inherit a world transformed, heralding the dawn of the age of dinosaurs. The Earth is awakening from a fever dream. The Permian-Triassic extinction, the Great Dying, has scoured the planet, wiping out over 90% of marine species and 70% of terrestrial life. It is the closest life has ever come to being extinguished. Out of this profound silence, a new era is dawning, the Triassic. The emptied world is a canvas of opportunity, a stage set for a new dynasty of rulers. These are the Archosaurs, the ruling reptiles. From a common ancestor, this supergroup splits into two great lineages. On one branch, the Ave metatarsalia are the ancestors of dinosaurs, pterosaurs, and birds. On the other, the Pseudosuchia, the crocodile-line Archosaurs. In the grand narrative of prehistory, we often fast forward to the Jurassic, to the age of dinosaurs. But to do so is to miss the first crucial act. For in the Triassic, it was not the dinosaurs who held dominion. It was the crocodiles' kin who seized the world. They were the pioneers, the innovators, the first reptilian giants to stride across the recovering continents. They were more diverse, more numerous, and far more powerful. This is their story, the forgotten age when crocodile ancestors ruled the earth. Our journey begins in the water. Throughout the Triassic, vast river systems and sprawling lakes define the landscape. Here, a familiar predator archetype emerges, but with a surprising twist. This is a phytosaur. At first glance, it is the mirror image of a modern crocodile. A long, powerful body, short legs, a tail built for propulsion, and a jaw bristling with conical teeth. They were perfectly adapted for life as semi-aquatic ambush predators, preying on fish and any land animal unwary enough to approach the water's edge. They were a global success story, with fossils found from North America to India. But a closer look reveals a key anatomical difference. Their nostrils are not at the tip of their snout, but positioned high on their head, just in front of their eyes. This subtle shift allowed them to breathe while almost entirely submerged, making them incredibly stealthy. They were a stunning example of convergent evolution, independently arriving at the same deadly blueprint as the true crocodiles that would follow millions of years later. For a time, they were the undisputed masters of the Triassic waterways, a testament to the early dominance of the Pseudosuchian line. While the phytosaurs claimed the rivers, the land belonged to a different kind of Pseudosuchian marvel. Meet the Archosaurs, the armored herbivores of the Triassic. These were not swift predators, but walking fortresses, their bodies encased in a formidable mosaic of bony plates called osteoderms. This armor, fused into a protective shield across their back, neck, and tail, made them a difficult meal for even the most determined carnivores. Some species, like Desmatosis, took this defense to an extreme, sporting enormous, curved spikes erupting from their shoulders, a clear warning to any would-be attacker. But their most peculiar feature was their head. Unlike their meat-eating relatives, Archosaurs possessed small heads with a unique, upturned, pig-like snout. This shovel-shaped nose was not for combat, but for foraging. They were the great diggers of their day, using their powerful neck muscles and specialized snouts to root through the soil, unearthing nutritious tubers, roots, and tough ferns. Their success demonstrates the incredible versatility of the crocodile-line Archosaurs, proving they were not just a dynasty of predators, but a group capable of diversifying to fill a vast array of ecological roles across the globe. Every ecosystem needs its apex predator, and in the late Triassic, that role was filled by a group of truly terrifying Pseudosuchians, the Rauisuchians. These were the land-based titans of their time, a dynasty of hyper-carnivores that dwarfed the early dinosaurs they lived alongside. The most famous of their kind, Postosuchus from North America, could reach lengths of over 6 meters and weigh as much as a modern saltwater crocodile. But unlike their sprawling cousins, Rauisuchians possessed a critical evolutionary innovation. Their legs were positioned directly beneath their bodies, a pillar-erect stance that supported their immense weight more efficiently and allowed for faster, more sustained movement over land. This was a parallel evolutionary leap, one also being made by the dinosaurs, but the Rauisuchians perfected it on a massive scale first. Their skulls were deep and powerful, lined with blade-like, serrated teeth capable of slicing through the thick hides and armor of their prey. For millions of years, creatures like Postosuchus and their kin were the undisputed rulers. They were the lions and tigers of the Triassic, the ultimate expression of predatory power before the dawn of the great theropod dinosaurs. The reign of the Rauisuchians, Archosaurs, and Phytosaurs was impressive, but they were just the headline acts in a far richer story. The Triassic world was filled with a dizzying array of crocodile-line Archosaurs, experimenting with a multitude of body plans. In the deserts of what is now New Mexico lived Ephigia, a member of a group called the Poposauroids. Remarkably, Ephigia was a biped. It walked on 2 long, slender legs, had a toothless beak, and a lightly built frame. It was a fast-running omnivore or herbivore, a near-perfect mimic of the ostrich-mimic dinosaurs that would appear over 100 million years later. This was a testament to the group's adaptability. Elsewhere, small, nimble creatures like Hesperosuchus dashed through the undergrowth. These were gracile terrestrial predators, likely hunting insects and small vertebrates. They were the agile counterpoint to their colossal cousins, demonstrating that the Pseudosuchian success story was not solely one of brute force and size. From bipedal runners to armored diggers, from river-dwelling giants to fleet-footed hunters, the crocodile family tree was exploring nearly every imaginable ecological niche on land. Their diversity was breathtaking. And where were the dinosaurs in this crocodile-dominated world? They were there, but their time had not yet come. The other great branch of the Archosaur family tree had indeed given rise to the first dinosaurs, but these early pioneers lived in the long shadows cast by their Pseudosuchian relatives. Creatures like Eoraptor and Herrerasaurus from South America were relatively small, bipedal carnivores. In North America, the slender Coelophysis darted through the fern prairies, likely hunting in packs to bring down prey larger than themselves. These were not yet the colossal sauropods or the fearsome Tyrannosaurs of the future. They were, for the most part, secondary players in the ecosystem. They were smaller, less numerous, and constantly at risk from the reigning Rauisuchian predators. For millions of years, the 2 great Archosaur lineages existed in a state of unequal competition. The crocodile-line was the establishment, diverse and dominant. The dinosaurs were the newcomers, the upstarts, possessing a body plan full of potential, but for now, they were biding their time, waiting for an opportunity, waiting for the world to change. And the world did change, in the most cataclysmic way imaginable. Around 201 million years ago, the Triassic period came to a violent end. Massive volcanic eruptions tied to the breakup of the supercontinent Pangaea tore the world apart. Oceans of lava poured across the land, and colossal quantities of greenhouse gases were pumped into the atmosphere, triggering runaway global warming and ocean acidification. This was the Triassic-Jurassic extinction event. For the magnificent Pseudosuchians, it was a catastrophe. The giant terrestrial rulers, the mighty Rauisuchians, and the armored Archosaurs were wiped out completely. Their specialization and large size, once their greatest assets, now made them vulnerable to the collapsing ecosystems. But not all of crocodiles' kin vanished. Smaller, more adaptable forms, including the direct ancestors of modern crocodiles, weathered the storm. The dinosaurs, for reasons still debated, fared better. Perhaps their more efficient bird-like respiratory system allowed them to cope with the toxic atmosphere. With their main competitors gone, the world was theirs for the taking. The Triassic takeover was over. But the legacy of the Pseudosuchia was not erased. It was a profound demonstration of evolutionary success. A forgotten empire whose story reminds us that before the age of dinosaurs, the world belonged to the crocodile's kin. Our story begins in the aftermath of apocalypse. 250 million years ago, the Great Dying, the Permian-Triassic extinction event, had scoured the Earth, wiping out over 90% of marine species and 70% of terrestrial life. But life is resilient. From the ashes of this global catastrophe, a new world was being forged. This was the Triassic period, a time of radical experimentation. On the vast, arid supercontinent of Pangaea, survivors competed to fill the void. Among them, one group rose to prominence, the Archosaurs, the ruling reptiles. This supergroup had split into two great lineages. One, the Ave Metasarcelia, walked the path toward birds and dinosaurs. The other, the Pseudosuchia, were the crocodile-line Archosaurs. And in the Triassic, it was the crocodile-line that held the crown. They were not the slow, amphibious lurkers we know today. These were fast, dynamic, and ecologically diverse creatures, the undisputed masters of their domain. They were the apex predators, the armored herbivores, the titans of the Triassic world, and their reign seemed unassailable. The sheer diversity of the Pseudosuchia was staggering. They had conquered nearly every major terrestrial niche. On the plains, herds of Postosuchus, heavily armored Archosaurs, browsed on low-lying vegetation. Their bodies were a fortress of bony plates, or osteoderms, culminating in a pair of enormous, intimidating spikes curving from their shoulders, a formidable defense against any predator. Elsewhere, poposaurids like Postosuchus defied expectations, evolving a bipedal stance and a toothless beak, superficially resembling the ostrich dinosaurs that would evolve tens of millions of years later. But it was the Rauisuchians who truly commanded the landscape. Giants like Saurosuchus were the lions of their time, quadrupedal apex predators up to 7 meters long. With massive skulls filled with blade-like teeth, they were perfectly equipped to hunt the large herbivores of the era. This was the crocodile-line's golden age, a testament to their evolutionary success. For millions of years, they were the architects and rulers of the terrestrial ecosystem, a dynasty built on power, armor, and diversity. In the shadow of these giants, another group was quietly emerging. These were the first dinosaurs, members of the other great Archosaur lineage. Compared to the mighty Pseudosuchians, they were unassuming. Early forms like Eoraptor were small, perhaps only a meter in length. Herrerasaurus, while larger and a capable predator, was still no match for a fully grown Rauisuchian. But these early dinosaurs possessed a suite of subtle yet revolutionary adaptations. Their limbs were positioned directly beneath their body, giving them a fully erect, efficient stance that differed from the semi-sprawling posture of many of their rivals. This skeletal architecture, combined with their lightweight frames, made them remarkably agile and fast. They were not conquerors yet, but survivors. They were opportunists, thriving in the margins, occupying the smaller predatory and herbivorous roles that the larger crocodile kin overlooked. In a world dominated by their cousins, the dinosaurs were biding their time, their evolutionary potential yet to be unleashed upon the world. The Triassic world was a stage for a long and complex struggle for supremacy. For over 30 million years, the two great Archosaur lines coexisted, but their relationship was defined by fierce competition. The evidence is written in the fossil record. Bite marks on dinosaur bones sometimes match the teeth of Protosuchian predators. Fossilized trackways show these different animals walking the same ancient landscapes. This was not a world where dinosaurs were predestined for success. They were kept in check by their dominant crocodile-line cousins. A young Platosaurus, an early sauropodomorph, would have lived in constant fear of an ambush from a Postosuchus. Every waterhole was a potential hunting ground for a lurking phytosaur, a crocodile-like Protosuchian. The dinosaurs survived by being nimble, by reproducing relatively quickly, and by exploiting niches their larger competitors couldn't. It was a delicate, high-stakes balance of power. The ruling reptiles were the Protosuchians, and the dinosaurs were, for the moment, secondary players in a drama whose final act had not yet been written. But the world itself was growing restless. Deep beneath the surface of Pangaea, tectonic forces were at work, slowly tearing the supercontinent apart. This geological turmoil unleashed one of the largest volcanic events in Earth's history. The Central Atlantic Magmatic Province, or CAMP, was a colossal series of eruptions that lasted for hundreds of thousands of years. Vast fissures in the crust, stretching for thousands of kilometers, spewed unimaginable quantities of lava, ash, and greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. The scale is difficult to comprehend. The resulting lava flows would have buried an area the size of the United States. The gases, primarily carbon dioxide and sulfur dioxide, triggered a cascade of environmental crises. The planet experienced a rapid and extreme phase of global warming. The oceans absorbed vast amounts of CO2, becoming acidic and hostile to marine life. The very chemistry of the air and sea was changing, pushing the world's ecosystems to a breaking point. The long reign of the Triassic megafauna was about to face its greatest challenge. This was the Triassic-Jurassic extinction event, the fourth of the planet's 5 great mass extinctions. Life on land was decimated. The environmental chaos triggered by the Camp volcanoes proved catastrophic for the dominant Pseudosuchians. The large-bodied Rauisuchians, Archosaurs, and other specialized forms vanished completely. Why did they fare so poorly while dinosaurs survived? The exact reasons are still debated by paleontologists, but several theories exist. The Pseudosuchians' slower growth rates and potentially lower metabolic rates may have made them less able to cope with the volatile climate and disrupted food chains. Their specialization to particular ecosystems left them vulnerable when those ecosystems collapsed. In contrast, the smaller, more adaptable dinosaurs proved more resilient. Their higher metabolism may have helped them endure the harsh conditions, and their rapid growth and reproduction allowed their populations to recover more quickly. The cataclysm acted as a planetary reset button. The world had been emptied of its rulers, creating a sudden and unprecedented ecological vacuum. The mighty dynasty of the crocodile kin was shattered. Out of the devastation, a new world order emerged. The Triassic-Jurassic extinction had cleared the stage, and the dinosaurs were perfectly positioned for the lead role. With their main competitors gone, they exploded in diversity and size. This was the dawn of the Jurassic, and with it the true beginning of the age of dinosaurs. The small bipedal forms of the Triassic gave way to giants. Sauropodomorphs evolved into the colossal, long-necked sauropods. Small theropods grew into formidable predators like Dilophosaurus. For the next 135 million years, dinosaurs would dominate every continent, their reign far exceeding that of their fallen rivals. And what of the crocodile-line? They did not disappear. A few groups survived the extinction, including the direct ancestors of modern crocodilians. By adapting to a semi-aquatic lifestyle, they found a new successful niche. This is the great family secret. Before the dinosaurs ruled the land, their crocodile cousins had already built an empire and lost it, a forgotten dynasty whose fall paved the way for the most famous reptiles in Earth's history. Our story begins not in a swamp, but on the arid plains of the late Triassic period, over 230 million years ago. Here, in a world dominated by the first dinosaurs, lived the ancestors of all crocodiles. But these were not the slow, amphibious lurkers we know today. These were the first crocodilomorphs, and they were built for speed. Creatures like Tyrannosaurus were small, slender, and pursued their prey on long, delicate legs. Their anatomy held a key innovation, a unique ankle joint that allowed their legs to be positioned directly beneath their bodies. This erect, pillar-like stance supported a far more efficient and energetic gait than the sprawling posture of their contemporaries. They were not giants, but agile terrestrial predators, sprinting across the dry earth in a manner more akin to a greyhound than a modern alligator. This was the blueprint from which all future crocodilian diversity would spring, a design born not of water, but of the chase, under the harsh Triassic sun. This early terrestrial success was embodied by a group known as the Pseudosuchians. For millions of years, they thrived as active, warm-blooded hunters, their fossils found on nearly every continent, a testament to their adaptability. Species such as Hesperosuchus possessed remarkably bird-like respiratory systems, with air sacs that allowed for a highly efficient one-way flow of oxygen. This advanced breathing apparatus would have fueled a high-energy lifestyle, enabling sustained periods of running and pursuit. They were key players in the Triassic ecosystems, occupying niches for fast-moving predators. Far from being simple reptiles, the Pseudosuchians were sophisticated and dynamic animals. Their existence fundamentally challenges our perception of the crocodilian lineage, revealing a hidden history of terrestrial athleticism before their descendants ever laid claim to the water's edge. They were the first great dynasty of the crocodilomorpha, masters of the Mesozoic foot race. As the Triassic gave way to the Jurassic, the world grew wetter and warmer. The supercontinent of Pangaea continued to break apart, creating new coastlines and vast river systems. For the crocodilomorphs, this changing world presented a new frontier of opportunity, the water. This pivotal transition is captured in fossils of the Postosuchians, such as the aptly named Postosuchus. These creatures were the architects of the semi-aquatic lifestyle. They retained the strong limbs and armor of their land-dwelling ancestors, making them capable hunters on the ground. But they also evolved key adaptations for the water: a skull that was beginning to flatten, eyes and nostrils migrating towards the top of the head, and a more powerful rudder-like tail. They were not yet masters of the aquatic realm, but they were no longer bound to the land. Postosuchus and its kin were versatile generalists, exploiting the rich bounty of both worlds, standing at the evolutionary crossroads that would define the future of their entire lineage. With the path to the water forged, a new formidable dynasty arose, the Meso-Eucrocodilia. This is the group that includes all modern crocodilians, and their Mesozoic ancestors perfected the art of the ambush. A crucial development was the evolution of a complete secondary palate, a bony shelf in the roof of the mouth that separated their nasal passages from their mouth cavity. This allowed them to breathe through their nostrils while their mouth was submerged and full of struggling prey, a vital tool for an aquatic hunter. In the vast river systems of the Cretaceous, this body plan reached monstrous proportions. Meet Archosuchus imperator, the emperor crocodile. Stretching over 10 meters long and weighing up to 8 tons, it was one of the largest crocodilomorphs that ever lived. Its long, powerful jaws, lined with over 100 teeth, were designed to capture and hold large dinosaurs that ventured too close to the water. Archosuchus was the undisputed king of the Cretaceous rivers, an apex predator whose sheer scale is difficult to comprehend. While giants like Archosuchus were ruling the rivers, another branch of the crocodilomorph family tree embarked on an even more radical evolutionary journey. They left the freshwater ecosystems behind entirely, venturing out into the open ocean. These were the Thalattosuchians, the sea crocodiles. Their transformation was profound. Over millions of years, they shed the heavy bony armor or scutes that protected their freshwater cousins, developing a smooth, streamlined body to reduce drag in the water. Their legs evolved from walking appendages into paddle-like flippers used for steering. And most remarkably, their tails developed a fleshy vertical fluke much like that of a shark or an ichthyosaur, a stunning example of convergent evolution. The metriorhynchids, the most advanced of this group, were fully pelagic. Creatures like Metriorhynchus no longer needed to return to land for any reason, becoming as marine as the dolphins of today, perfectly adapted to a life on the high seas of the Jurassic. Within the oceanic realm, the Thalattosuchians diversified into a range of predatory roles. While many, like Metriorhynchus, had long, slender snouts ideal for snapping up fish and squid, a new and terrifying form emerged in the late Jurassic. This was Dinosaurus, a metriorhynchid so different it earned the nickname Godzilla. Unlike its relatives, Dinosaurus possessed a short, deep, and robust skull, more like that of a tyrannosaur than a crocodile. Its jaws were armed not with conical teeth for piercing, but with large, serrated zippodont teeth, designed for shearing through flesh and bone. This fearsome anatomy points to a macropredator, an apex hunter that targeted not just giant fish, but other large marine reptiles. Dinosaurus represents the pinnacle of crocodilomorph marine adaptation, a specialized hunter that occupied the top of the food chain, proving that this incredible lineage could produce not only river kings, but also true sea monsters. The incredible reign of the sea crocodiles was not to last forever. Like the great marine reptiles they hunted, the Thalattosuchians vanished from the oceans millions of years before the final extinction of the dinosaurs. Their hyper-specialization, once their greatest strength, perhaps left them vulnerable to environmental change. Yet, their freshwater cousins, the Neosuchians, the group that includes the ancestors of all living crocodilians, persevered. Their more generalized, semi-aquatic lifestyle proved to be a winning strategy. They were resilient enough to survive the cataclysm that wiped out the non-avian dinosaurs, inheriting a world of new opportunities. The story of the crocodile-amorpha is a sweeping saga of adaptation. From nimble sprinters on land to titanic river sovereigns to streamlined hunters of the open ocean, their evolutionary journey is a powerful testament to the tenacity of life. They were not merely survivors in a world of giants, they were a dynasty in their own right, and their legacy continues to patrol the waterways of our planet to this very day. The Late Cretaceous, a world of titans. On land, herds of hadrosaurs, miles long, thunder across plains of primitive flowering plants. Towering tyrannosaurs, the apex predators of an age, command the landscape with terrifying authority. This is the planet at its most vibrant, a complex and thriving ecosystem balanced on a knife's edge. But not all life here is lived on such a colossal scale. In the shadow of the giants, in the warm, sluggish waterways that crisscross the continents, another dynasty endures. These are the crocodilomorphs. They are an ancient lineage, survivors of past extinctions, with a body plan tested and refined over 200 million years. Creatures like Borealosuchus, though formidable, are dwarfed by their dinosaur neighbors. They are masters of the ambush, patient hunters of the water's edge. Their lives are tied to the rhythms of the rivers and swamps, a world away from the high drama of the terrestrial giants. They are an overlooked success story, quietly thriving, their resilience being forged in the crucible of a world that is about to change forever. Unbeknownst to them, their ancient strengths are about to be put to the ultimate test. 66 million years ago, the sky itself became an enemy. From the blackness of space, a rock 6 miles wide, traveling 20 times faster than a rifle bullet, struck the Earth. The impact, centered in what is now the Yucatan Peninsula, was incomprehensible. It released energy billions of times greater than all the world's nuclear weapons combined. The initial flash incinerated everything for hundreds of miles. A mega tsunami ripped across the oceans. But the most insidious killer came later. Trillions of tons of pulverized rock and soot were blasted into the upper atmosphere, shrouding the planet in a thick, dark veil. Sunlight, the very source of energy for most life on Earth, was blocked. Photosynthesis ceased. Plants withered and died. The planet was plunged into a dark, freezing twilight that would last for years, an impact winter. For the great dinosaurs, creatures tuned to a world of warmth and abundance, this was an apocalypse. Their reign, which had lasted for over 150 million years, was about to end in darkness and cold. The world's most successful animals were about to become fossils. In this new, hostile world, the rules of survival were rewritten overnight. Size and strength, once assets, became fatal liabilities. The key to enduring the apocalypse was not power, but patience. And the crocodilomorphs were masters of patience. Their secret weapon was their own biology, a trait often viewed as primitive, ectothermy. They were cold-blooded. Unlike the dinosaurs, which likely had much higher, more active metabolisms, crocodiles didn't need to eat constantly to generate body heat. Their energy requirements were astonishingly low. When food became scarce and temperatures plummeted, they could simply slow down. They could enter a state of torpor known as brumation, reducing their heart rate to just a few beats per minute and effectively shutting down their metabolism. They could survive for months, even over a year, without a single meal, waiting for conditions to improve. While the warm-blooded giants starved in the relentless cold, the crocodile-amorphs waited. Buried in mud or lurking in the frigid depths, they rode out the apocalypse in a state of suspended animation, a living testament to the advantages of a slower pace of life. Another critical advantage for the crocodile-amorphs was their palate. They were anything but picky eaters. The collapse of photosynthesis wiped out the plant's plant life, which in turn starved the herbivores, and consequently the carnivores that preyed upon them. The entire terrestrial food web disintegrated. But the crocodile-amorphs were supreme opportunists, the ultimate generalists. Their diet was not tied to any one source. They were scavengers. As the world filled with the decaying remains of the dinosaurs, the crocodiles had a temporary grim buffet. But more importantly, their aquatic homes provided a different kind of food web, one based not on living plants, but on detritus, the vast accumulation of dead organic matter. This detrital food web was far more resilient to the long darkness. They could consume insects, worms, rotting wood, fungus, and any small, hardy vertebrates that managed to survive in the water. In a world where starvation was the primary killer, the ability to derive sustenance from the literal dregs of a dead ecosystem was the difference between extinction and survival. They were nature's cleanup crew, and their work had never been more vital. While the land was a theater of death, racked by fire, acid rain, and freezing temperatures, the water offered a crucial sanctuary. The semi-aquatic lifestyle of the crocodile-amorphs was perhaps their greatest shield against the cataclysm's immediate effects. Water has a high thermal capacity, meaning it changes temperature far more slowly than air or land. This provided a vital buffer against the violent temperature swings of the impact winter. The initial searing heat pulse from the re-entering ejecta, which may have cooked exposed land animals alive, would have been survivable just a few feet below the surface of a river or lake. Furthermore, freshwater ecosystems, while severely impacted, proved more robust than their marine or terrestrial counterparts. They were less affected by the global acid rain and were sustained by the detritus flowing in from the dead world above. When conditions became truly unbearable, these creatures had another trick. They could dig. By excavating burrows deep into the muddy banks of rivers, they could create insulated shelters, protecting them from the freezing cold and the toxic air, waiting patiently for the world above to heal. The Cretaceous extinction was the ultimate evolutionary filter, and it was ruthlessly efficient. It begs the question, why did crocodile-amorphs pass through while other seemingly similar aquatic reptiles did not? Consider the mosasaurs, the giant marine lizards that dominated the oceans. They were apex predators, but their supremacy was tied to a fragile oceanic food web. The impact's effect on the oceans was catastrophic. The darkness killed off the phytoplankton, the microscopic plants that formed the base of the entire marine food chain. Without phytoplankton, the zooplankton starved. The fish that ate them disappeared, and colossal predators like mosasaurs were left with nothing. Their vast open ocean habitat offered no escape. Crocodile-amorphs, by contrast, largely inhabited freshwater and coastal estuaries. These environments, fed by terrestrial runoff and detritus, were more self-contained and recovered faster. Another factor was size. The truly gigantic crocodile-amorphs of the Cretaceous, like the bus-sized Dinosuchus, did go extinct. Their massive bodies required too much food to sustain. It was their smaller, more modest cousins, the species less than 20 feet long, that possessed the perfect combination of traits: cold-blooded, generalist feeders sheltered in resilient freshwater habitats. They were not the biggest or the strongest, but they were the most adaptable. Slowly, agonizingly, the world healed. After years or even decades of darkness, the dust and soot began to settle out of the atmosphere. The sun, a pale and distant memory, returned. With the light came life. Hardy ferns, the disaster taxa of the plant world, were the first to recolonize the gray landscape, carpeting it in a sea of green. As the planet warmed and ecosystems began to re-establish themselves, the survivors emerged into a profoundly different world. The age of dinosaurs was over. A great silence had fallen upon the land, the thunder of sauropod footsteps and the roar of Tyrannosaurs replaced by the whisper of the wind. This empty world presented an unprecedented opportunity. For the crocodilomorphs who had weathered the storm, it was the dawn of a new era. They were no longer living in the shadows of giants. They were the inheritors of the waterways. From these hardy, tenacious ancestors, a new radiation of crocodilians would begin, eventually giving rise to the alligators, crocodiles, caimans, and gharials we know today. Their survival was not a fluke. It was a victory for a body plan of unparalleled resilience, a lifestyle of profound patience, and a lineage that proved it could, quite literally, ride out the apocalypse. The river moves, but the log does not. Or is it a log? With a flick of a tail, a ripple of ancient muscle, the illusion is broken. This is a crocodile, an animal that has mastered the art of waiting. For millions of years it has waited. It watched the continents drift. It watched mountains rise and fall. It watched the reign of the dinosaurs begin, flourish, and end in fire. While countless species have appeared and vanished, etched into the fossil record as fleeting experiments of evolution, the crocodilian form has endured. They are often called living fossils, a term that suggests stagnation, a halt in evolution. But this is a profound misunderstanding. Their story is not one of arrested development, but of supreme success. They possess a design so effective, so perfectly adapted to its niche, that it has required only minor refinements over epochs. They are a living, breathing connection to a world we can only imagine, a time when their kin were the undisputed rulers of the planet. They carry the memory of deep time in their blood, their bones, and their cold, patient gaze. To understand the crocodile's extraordinary legacy, we must travel back more than 250 million years to the dawn of the Triassic period. This was the beginning of the Age of Reptiles and the rise of a remarkable group, the Archosaurs, the ruling reptiles. This supergroup split into two major branches. One led to the dinosaurs, the pterosaurs, and eventually modern birds. The other gave rise to the Pseudosuchians, a sprawling dynasty whose only living representatives are the crocodilians. What united these disparate creatures was a shared anatomical blueprint. Key features, like openings in the skull in front of the eyes and a specialized upward-pointing projection on the thigh bone, marked them as Archosaurs. This fundamental body plan was a platform for incredible evolutionary innovation. From it sprang the feathered agility of birds and the colossal size of sauropods. But it was the crocodilian branch that perfected a model for aquatic ambush predation, a model so successful that its core principles have remained unchanged, a testament to the power and versatility of the original Archosaur design. They are not merely cousins to the dinosaurs, they are the other side of the same magnificent coin. The family connection is written in bone. a story that paleontologists can read with remarkable clarity. One of the most telling chapters is found in the ankle. The structure of this joint is a fundamental dividing line within the Archosaurs. The dinosaur and pterosaur lineage, known as Ave metatarsalia, developed a simple, hinge-like ankle. This mesotarsal joint was perfect for efficient, upright movement on land. But the crocodile-line, the Pseudosuchia, evolved a different solution, the crurotarsal ankle. This was a far more flexible arrangement, a ball and socket joint that allowed the foot to twist and rotate. This complex anatomy underpins the modern crocodiles. It enables their classic low-to-the-ground sprawl, ideal for stealth and stability in the water. But it also allows them to pull their legs directly underneath their bodies for the high walk, a surprisingly efficient gait for traversing land. This adaptable ankle is not a primitive trait. It is a sophisticated piece of biological engineering that has given crocodilians an edge for over 200 million years, allowing them to navigate the boundary between water and land with unparalleled mastery. How did the crocodilians survive when their mighty dinosaur relatives perished? The answer lies in a formidable survivor's toolkit honed over millions of years of environmental turmoil. Their semi-aquatic lifestyle was a crucial refuge. While terrestrial ecosystems collapsed under the ash and darkness following the asteroid impact 66 million years ago, freshwater rivers and estuaries offered a buffer. Here, food webs based on detritus, decaying organic matter, were more resilient. Furthermore, the crocodilian metabolism is a marvel of efficiency. Able to slow their heart rate to just a few beats per minute, they can go for months, sometimes over a year, without a meal. This incredible patience allowed them to outlast the lean years that followed the extinction event. Add to this a famously robust immune system, capable of fighting off infections that would be lethal to most other vertebrates. They were not simply lucky, they were supremely prepared. Their biology, shaped by a long history of boom and bust, was perfectly pre-adapted to endure the unthinkable, making them the ultimate beneficiaries of the world's greatest catastrophe. The legacy of the Archosaurs is not just anatomical, but behavioral. Observing a modern alligator or caiman reveals a social complexity that hints at a deep evolutionary history. Consider parental care. A mother crocodile doesn't just lay her eggs and leave, she guards her nest fiercely against predators for months. Upon hatching, she may gently carry the babies in her formidable jaws to the safety of the water, continuing to protect them. This level of maternal investment is rare among reptiles and is more akin to what we see in their living archosaur relatives, birds. They also communicate. From the deep infrasonic bellows of a bull alligator to the chirps of hatchlings coordinating their emergence from the egg, crocodilians possess a sophisticated vocal repertoire. These behaviors, parental care, complex communication, even cooperative hunting strategies observed in some species, are unlikely to be recent inventions. They are more likely echoes from the Mesozoic, ancient instincts passed down through the generations, offering us a tantalizing glimpse into the social lives of their long-extinct dinosaur and Pseudosuchian kin. In the 21st century, our exploration of this ancient lineage has moved from the fossil bed to the laboratory. The crocodilian genome is a living archive, a biological manuscript containing chapters written hundreds of millions of years ago. By sequencing their DNA, scientists are uncovering the genetic architecture of an archosaur. They are identifying genes that control temperature-dependent sex determination, a trait that may have been widespread in the Mesozoic. They are studying the genetic basis for their powerful immune response and their ability to regenerate tissue with minimal scarring. Compared to the rapidly evolving genomes of mammals and birds, the crocodilian genetic code has changed remarkably slowly. This molecular conservatism makes them an invaluable reference point. Each gene, each protein sequence is a potential key to unlocking secrets about the physiology and biology of extinct giants. We can now read the instructions that built not only the modern alligator, but that also echo the genetic blueprint of its Triassic ancestors, bridging the vast expanse of time with the elegant language of DNA. So we return to the riverbank, to that patient, watchful gaze. The crocodile is not a relic trapped in the past. It is a potent and vital force in its modern ecosystem, a guardian of a legacy that stretches back to the dawn of the dinosaurs. In its armored hide, we see the echo of ancient Pseudosuchians that once roamed Pangaea. In the power of its jaws, we sense the predatory perfection that has defined its lineage. They are the last of the non-avian ruling reptiles, carrying the weight of a lost world into the present day. Their survival is a profound lesson in resilience, adaptation, and the sheer tenacity of life. As they navigate the challenges of the Anthropocene, of a world now shaped by humanity, their fate becomes our responsibility. To protect the crocodile, the gharial, the alligator, and the caiman is to preserve more than just a species. It is to safeguard one of the planet's most ancient and awe-inspiring family secrets, ensuring that the last living voice of the age of reptiles is not silenced on our watch.